Hello everyone, this is Shannon here for Waffle Flower Crafts. In this video, we are going to create a shaker card using the new Hollybird combo and the nesting hexagon die set. I'm going to start today's card with the Hollybird combo. The combo comes with the Hollybird stamp set in the front and the matching die in the back. I'm going to stamp this image onto a piece of Bristol paper, and I'm going to use VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Bristol paper is a very smooth paper, which is going to work really well for the very simple watercoloring that I'm going to do today with Tombow dual brush pens. So here's the VersaFine. I'm just going to ink up this image. I'm just going to focus on inking up the bird. I'm not going to actually include the hexagon stamped line. So now that the bird is stamped, I'm going to start to do my coloring. I'm going to start with my Tombow marker direct to paper. And I'm basically just going to color any of the areas that I want to be dark. So the areas that I think are going to be in shadow. So that his forehead right near his hat, the under part of his wing, and of course down by his belly. All those areas I think are going to be in shadow. So once I get some of that ink down onto my paper, I'm going to grab my brush. I do have some water sprayed out onto my mat here, and I'm just picking up a very small amount of water and then taking my damp brush and kind of coloring over or moving my brush over where that ink is, and that activates that ink, gets it fluid, and then I can kind of move it over and fill out the rest of the bird, and that creates a nice gradation. So we have kind of a lighter part in near his belly and kind of darker out towards the edges. I grabbed a different color here for his beak, colored that real quick, and now I'm going to move on to his hat. Again, same method. I'm going to start with my marker direct to paper, color all those areas that I think will be in shadow, or I see them in shadow. And once I get some of that color down, I'll then grab my brush, get a little bit of water, and then go over that ink and kind of blend it out to kind of create a gradation over the surface. So I just colored the rim of his knitted hat, and now I'm going to color the little trees in that same kind of purple color. Once I get that part done, I'm going to move on to another part of the hat. I'm going to move on to kind of a red color and color this detail on his hat, as well as the berries in the holly kind of floral arrangement on top of his head. As soon as I finish up with that red, I'm going to grab a pink and color the rest of his hat with the pink here. And if you haven't noticed by now, the colors I am using are on screen so you can follow along. I basically placed that darkest shade right at the top of his hat, and now I'm blending it out to kind of create a nice gradation. This is probably not really accurate on where the shadows would be. I definitely think about contrast. As much as I think about shadows, I want some contrast, and I knew if I had it darker there, I'd get more contrast with that light pink next to the red. I'd get a little bit more contrast that way. So now I'm moving on to a green for the holly leaves, and I'm also going to use the same green for his mug as well. Kind of get that color down, and then I'll take my brush and blend it out. Now we're almost done here. I've just got to do my coffee. So I'll grab a brown, place that down, and then blend that out. Now I have one last step. I want to add some pink to his cheeks to make him rosy. I want this to be soft, so I scribbled the pink down onto my mat and then picked it up with a damp brush and then applied that color to my image. This just makes sure it's a little bit softer and not so harsh. So now that my watercoloring is done, I went ahead and die cut the bird out with the matching die. And now I'm going to move on to the unicorn lines half and half paper pad. I'm going to grab this minty green color here because it kind of matches the mug, and I went ahead and cut it in half, and I also cut this darker panel a little bit smaller than an A2 panel, so it's 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. That's going to create a nice border around it when we add it to our card front. Now with the lighter panel, I'm going to die cut a frame using the new nesting hexagon die set. I'm going to pull off the third largest and fourth largest dies from this set, and I'm going to position them here onto that lighter panel, and I'm going to nest them inside of each other, nest the smaller one inside of the larger one, and try to create an equal border between the two, then use a couple pieces of purple tape to hold those dies in place, and then run them through my die cutting machine. This will create a really thin, beautiful little border for our bird. Now I'm going to take those two dies and die cut them again out of some white craft foam. We're going to create the well here for our shaker contents. So again, I spaced them equally apart, then used some tape to hold them in place, and then run it through my die cutting machine. I went ahead and die cut a second one, and I am going to leave the negative pieces inside these. This is just going to keep them perfectly, that perfect hexagon shape while I adhere them together, because they are very thin and it's easy to kind of get them all warped out of shape. So I added some liquid glue to the top of one of the hexagons, just the frame though, not the center part, not the negative piece, and then adhered them together. And I'm going to set those aside to dry. Now I have a piece of acetate. I'm going to take the largest hexagon die, so this is the third largest die from the nesting hexagon set. Just center it here on my acetate and then run that through my die cutting machine. This is going to be the top for my shaker card, and I'm going to take that cardstock frame that we created out of the pattern paper, just add some liquid glue to the backside of that, center that, and place that directly down onto that acetate, and those will fit perfectly together. I'll set those aside as well. While those two pieces are drying for our shaker card, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I have a sentiment from the Holly Bird stamp set. I'm going to heat emboss it, so I applied some anti-static powder. I'm going to ink it up with Versamark ink, stamp it here onto this black cardstock. Then I'll dip it into some white embossing powder, tap off the excess, and then I'll heat set this with my heat tool. Once I've heat set that, I will then trim it down to a sentiment strip. So here are all our components, and we're ready to kind of put this shaker card together. I'm going to start by adhering our panel that we trimmed down. This is the darker mint panel. I'm going to adhere it down to a A2 top folding white card base. Just going to apply some tape to the back of this, center it, and stick that guy right down onto the front of the card base. Once I get that stuck, I'm going to grab my bone folder here and just kind of lightly press all over, make sure all the edges are nice and stuck down or adhered down. Then I'm going to move on to my foam frame. Again, this is the craft foam that was doubled up. I'm just going to gently remove it from the negative pieces, add some liquid glue to the back side of it, and then center it and place it right down onto the card front, making sure everything is as close to perfect hexagon shape as I can make it. Then I will grab my bird here, add some glue to the back side of him, then gently lift up that foam frame and tuck the little bottom edge of the bird right underneath that. Once I get him in place, I then am going to actually grab my my plate for my die cutting machine, just place it on top while and allow that to dry a little bit. Once that is dried, I'm then going to grab my anti-static bag, apply some anti-static powder to kind of the inside of the well. I even used a brush to kind of move it around. This is just going to make sure if there's any of that liquid glue kind of that oozed out, these foam balls won't stick to it. So I'm using these styrofoam balls to fill my shaker card today. These are actually used for making slime, and I bought this bag from Hobby Lobby before at last Christmas season. So there's lots of places to kind of find these and look online. You can definitely find these foam balls on Amazon right now if you want to make this card right now, or you want to get some of these foam balls for your shaker cards. But they are thicker, so that's why I had to double up with 2 layers of craft foam for the shaker well. So once I filled it up, I then grabbed the top of my shaker, added some liquid glue to the backside of that, and then placed that on top of my well. Then I placed my plate on top and dried it for a little bit. And now that that is completely dry, my shaker's done, I'm ready to finish this up with my sentiment. I have these really great black foam squares. I'm going to double them up here and then place them on the very edges of my sentiment strip. Then I'll remove the backing, and I'm going to also grab a little bit of liquid glue and place it onto the hexagon frame right where I know my sentiment's kind of going to rest. So I'll just place my sentiment down here, and once I get it centered and stuck, this card is done. I'll now hold my card up to the camera so hopefully you can get a good look at all the details in this card. I really love this large bird illustrated by Big Bear and Bird. So cute, looks so cozy, and it was so fun to kind of create this shaker card with these foam balls, kind of unexpected, but I think work really well, especially with the scale of this image. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you'd like any more information on the products I use, please head over to Waffle Flower Crafts. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a wonderful day.